In class, Alice can't focus on anything. Alice has a typical attitude of, ugh, this isn't going to better society, which I always find maddening. Which maybe metaphysics isn't going to personally better your life because you've already given up on literally everything, Alice. Ungrateful brat. Hello and welcome to Comprehension Points Video Snark. If you came here because you thought that this was an audiobook, please stick around and maybe learn some reading and listening comprehension skills. I read books and discuss what went wrong and how they can possibly be fixed. I'm continuing my read-through of the Wonderland Trials by Sara Ella. Not the first video, go check out the others, links are posted below. Chapter 5. The people at the table place their bets for the new game and start to play. One of the other players complains after a while that the game makes most sense, and I kind of agree, but at the same time, I get that it's supposed to be this whimsical and nonsensical like the original series that this pulls from. However, I have to admit that this nonsense game is difficult to follow. Blanche randomly helps Alice cheat. She has a pounding headache, which randomly makes her see Blanche's obvious plays to help Alice win, which, wow, yeah, it would be way less subtle with a neon sign there, author. Yeah, no matter how hard I try to play it by my own rule, Blanche wreaks the pack. Transfixed, I catch a few of her tricks, but spend the remainder of the game baffled. It's as if Blanche is changing the cards with a mere thought or glance. Not even half a page earlier, Blanche convinced the other players to pick up a card that Alice had recently discarded. But if Blanche is able to move the cards around through the deck, why doesn't she simply ensure that the other players get bad draws and Alice gets good draws? None of this makes any sense. I'm here for whimsical nonsense, but this is difficult to follow, which makes it hard to read. The timer Blanche has set runs out of sand, and another player joins the table. Alice knows him only as Cheshire, although it's difficult to tell if that's the name his mama gave him or if it's simply a nickname. After all, Chess had called Alice Ace in a text message when she was leaving the train station. But Blanche clearly doesn't want Chess there, and the two of them get into an argument over the entire thing. However, since Chess has barely been introduced by this point, I'm gonna go ahead and say that I don't care. Blanche commands the other players to show their hands and declares Alice the winner. She glows to Chess over how the wildflower is hers, and Alice allows herself to dream for a second that she's actually a Wonderlander. Chess literally disappears, which startles Alice. She goes upstairs to look for him, and then Chess appears. She makes some thin excuse of looking for the bathroom, which he sees right through. Then there's this really long bit where Chess is speaking in almost a word salad kind of way. Like the individual words make sense, but the way he strings them together is complete gibberish. Alice calls him out every time, but he keeps insisting that what he said was what he meant, and the author is clearly trying to emulate the source material, but she completely and utterly lacks any of the wit or charm Carol possesses to pull it off. He asks why she's there with the white rabbit, and honestly, I know that England has closed their borders, but you'd think that there'd be enough people around who still speak enough French to get by. After all, you can't be neighbors with the country and not speak a little of the language. Alice is completely dense on who or what he means, and this sparks another nonsensical argument. He then gives her a key. Alice complains that people keep giving her things when it's not her birthday, which makes him mention her own birthday. And stop. Please stop. I came in here for a fun Alice retelling. Instead, everything in this book seems insanely shoehorned in to the point of pain. Chess then reminds her that she's going to miss the last train if she's not careful, and Alice rushes out to the door. On her way out, she passes Bill, who is screaming at anybody about his missing money. He then points to her and screams that she's a thief and cheat, which, wow, yeah, you're a bouncer for an illegal gambling den and you're surprised that the patrons are pickpockets? Kinda sounds like a you problem. She ignores him, but somebody forcefully hangs her back, and she randomly thinks that she's not going to make the last train and can only picture Charlotte's disappointed face about her sister not having come home last night. Chapter 6. Alice wakes up in a strange room and she's naturally a little terrified. She has a bunch of random thoughts that I'm going to file under, an editor would have cleaned this up for you, and move on. She hears a voice and thinks that it's Blanche. A voice tells her that she's always so late, which is yet another example of the author trying way too hard to hammer in as many references towards the source material without even remotely trying to make it original. The voice is Chess, and the two of them talk for a moment about how Alice is dreaming and how this isn't real. Or is it? Alice is like, it's a dream and none of this is real, but she also completely and utterly forgets that she lives in a world where magic is also real, so... Then there's this maddening 2 pages in which Alice keeps trying to leave and Chess keeps telling her, not that way, not that other way either. Eventually Alice is poked in the chest with the key Chess had given her earlier, which... Wow, the author isn't even remotely trying to be original at this point. I can also see the words drink me further down the page, and I'm completely and utterly done with this right now. This story has zero originality and creativity behind it. It's like the author chewed on the original for a moment and regurgitated it into a poorly written dystopian world for us to consume. This is so bad. Why do people like this? Anyway, there's all of these doors, but they transform into windows. And then there's the famous tea on the glass table that says, "Drink me." But this is where Alice hesitates because Charlotte had always told her that tea could kill her. Ches encourages her to drink it anyway because it's a dream, isn't it? Anyway, Alice drinks the tea, but it was the wrong tea and she grows really tall. Ches tells her to drink the other tea, and that one shrinks her. From there, she wanders through the door where she hears Maddie talking about people getting registered on that Wonderlander list. But then Charlotte is there and Alice realizes that she's in a car and her sister is driving. Charlotte chides Alice for being irresponsible. Alice is still a little out of it and asks where Maddie is, but Charlotte clearly doesn't know what Alice is talking about, or at least she pretends not to know. It's hard to say at this junction. Alice thinks about the dream, but also compares it to her current situation. She thinks nothing more beyond how it was probably some manifestation of her fears, but what if? She also thinks about what was beyond that door in her dream. Chapter 7. Back home, Charlotte lays into Alice, and from her perspective, I get it, that these exams are everything to a teenager because they determine where you're going to spend the rest of your life. But I also understand why Alice couldn't care less, especially when her prospects seem like working in a dead-end job in a miserable little town until I eventually die. Alice asks Charlotte why it is that she's stuck here when she could have, and I quote, had it all. Charlotte huffs and insists that she has to take care of her little sister, which is fair. And then she says that there's more to life than money, which, yes, there is. But it seems as though the sisters suffer unnecessarily for no real reason. We may be sisters, but we look nothing alike aside from our glasses. So they're alike except for an accessory that they both need? How exactly is that a physical trait? Does the author seriously believe that everybody in the world who wears glasses are all somehow related? Charlotte then holds up all of the money that Alice had saved up over the years and pointedly tells her sister that she needs a real job, and that playing poker and illegal gambling debts and picking pockets isn't an actual job. And once again, I'm completely and utterly on the side of the adult in this situation. I get that life is nothing but a big steaming pile, but Alice is so desperate to be something that she's not that she's going to intentionally ruin any sort of chance at anything remotely decent for what? As Charlotte set up life of crime that'll likely end up with Alice in jail before she's 30 and likely dead before she's 50. And yeah, I know that the entire point of the series is going to be Alice finds the magic. But look at the situation from Charlotte's perspective for 1 second and tell me that you don't understand where she's coming from. Charlotte literally sacrificed so much so that she could raise her little sister after their parents died, and Alice's response is to literally spit in Charlotte's face. Talk about an ungrateful brat. Anyway, Alice begs Charlotte to tell her what happened to their parents. The only thing she knows is that they up and walked away one day. Charlotte goes on one of those maddening and frustrating tangents of, "Oh, when you were little, I can't believe how much time has passed and you're an adult now, Alice." But as she's talking about the parents, she slips up and says, "your parents," rather than "our parents," and then it happens again, and it makes it seem like it was actually Alice and Charlotte who did the leaving rather than the parents. The two of them continue to fight, and Alice only continues to be an ungrateful brat with zero awareness of how awful she's being. Do people seriously read this inside with Alice? I'd like nothing more than to smack her right now. Alice settles down to the sofa to get some sleep since it's well after 1 and she has school later, but she can't sleep and she keeps thinking about how she needs to establish her independence away from Charlotte and the school. She also keeps thinking about how Charlotte slipped up and said "your parents" instead of "our parents." Chapter 8. Alex wakes up the next morning on Charlotte's guest bed. She doesn't want to go to school and knows that Charlotte will be keeping a closer eye on her so that she has to at least pretend. She then finds an open window, which is unlike her sister. Then she finds the kitchen untouched, which is also unlike her sister to not have started a pot of coffee first thing in the morning. Alice checks her sister's room but finds Charlotte gone. The only other thing in the apartment is Dina, and Alice tells her that Charlotte probably went to start her shift at the library. But Charlotte doesn't appear to be downstairs in the office library either, which is even more baffling. Alice goes to the campus where she briefly asks a lady at the coffee cart if she's seen her sister. The lady gives a vague non-answer before telling Alice that it looks like rain. In class, Alice can't focus on anything. Alice has a typical attitude of, "Ugh, this isn't going to better society," which I always find maddening. Which maybe metaphysics isn't going to personally better your life because you've already given up on literally everything, Alice. Ungrateful brat. As she leaves campus during a break, she overhears some of her classmates talking about dreams of becoming a fashion designer in Paris or the Queen's secretary. Alice thinks that they're fools for having dreams, but she's literally asking for the impossible to be a Wonderlander so that she can enter the trials. Pot, kettle, black. She gets back to her dorm or Charlotte's apartment. I literally have no idea because the narration doesn't bother to establish what room that this is. But inside, Alice finds things not as she left them, as if somebody had rifled through her things. A window is open too, but she doesn't find her sister. However, the narration has now decided that Alice doesn't want to call Charlotte her sister, so Alice is second guessing their relationship. Alice also randomly thinks that Charlotte would have gone through Alice's things, but doesn't know why. She goes back to the library, where she spends some time establishing to the reader that they have access to works from great British authors such as J.K. Rowling, C.S. Lewis, and J.R.R. Tolkien. However, the access is usually pretty limited, but Charlotte always bent the rules for her sister. Alice finds the headmistress tending the library desk. Headmistress O'Hare says that she's been trying to reach Alice all morning, but Alice said that she hadn't heard the intercom calls for her. O'Hare goes on and expresses her condolences over Charlotte, much to Alice's confusion. O'Hare realizes her mistake and shows Alice a daily newspaper which features Charlotte on the front page. Whatever happened to her is going to have to wait until the next chapter, however. Thanks for listening to my book Snark on YouTube. New videos are up every Monday, but stick around because I sometimes drop random videos on other days too. Just as a reminder, even if you can't financially support me, there are other ways to help me out. The first is watching this video as well as all of my other videos. It's also important to like and subscribe. Finally, you can share this video with all of your friends so that they can help as well. If you're already caught up with all of my videos, you can go to Tumblr for my main book Snarks, always free and updated every morning. And if you've read all of my main Snarks, you can find even more Snark on my Patreon. You can access it for $1 a month. Members also get early access to my main Tumblr Snark. Special thanks to Dawn, Phoebe, and Nikki for supporting me on Patreon already. If you want to hear your name in my video next week, either support me on Patreon or make a one-time donation. Do you like my Snarks so much that you want me to snark your writing? I do that too. For just $6 per chapter, I will tell you how awful that your writing is. But not to worry if you feel like you couldn't take the criticism. I also offer regular book editing as well, just 1 cent per word. You can contact me on any of my social media platforms if you have further questions. If you want to read some of the things that I've written, you can purchase my works on Amazon. I have a slew of erotic short stories and 2 full-length novels. I also frequently run flash sales on my stories, and if you aren't following me on any social media, you might want to do so just so you can know when I might be offering things for free. Links for everything will be posted below. See you next week, guys!